Hi, I'm Joe Finsternis, and today I'll be talking to you about a movie called Vampire Girl vs. Frankenstein Girl. Now, the first thing you should know about this movie is that it is a Japanese film with subtitles, so if you don't like reading subtitles while watching a movie, you might want to skip this one. On the other hand, if you don't really care, then stay tuned. Anyway, what this movie is about is there are these two girls in high school who are fighting for the affections of this one boy in their class on Valentine's Day. One of them is a spoiled brat whose father is the vice principal of the school, and he just so happens to be a mad scientist in secret. The other girl is a transfer student who seems to have a sweeter personality, and she also just so happens to be a vampire. Now, one thing that this film features in vampire lore that you don't see in a lot of films these days is that the vampire girl is able to walk around in the sunlight without the aid of sunscreen or anything, and she's perfectly fine. In case you didn't know, the whole being killed by sunlight thing didn't even start until the original vampire movie Nosferatu came out during the 20s. Even in the novel Dracula, the title character was able to survive in the sun. He just didn't have any powers. But moving back to the film itself, aside from keeping in line more or less with classic vampire mythology, there are a lot of things about this movie that make no sense at all. It is a very bizarre sort of Japanese B-movie, and it was made by the same people who did Tokyo Gore Police, which I didn't even know going into it, but I was reminded of that film particularly during a scene where the vampire girl attacked this man. She tore out his jugular, and there was just this huge geyser of blood. She was dancing around in it and everything, and you saw this wide shot of that, not only where the blood was coming out of the man's neck, but also just randomly from up here and up here, from nobody in particular. I guess it just becomes Evil Dead 2013 at that point. And I kind of like the way that the blood looks in this movie. It doesn't really look realistic, but it's just got this really bright color to it that I think is aesthetically pleasing. I think it looks better than the blood from Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd anyway. And the special effects in the film are very low-key, It's obvious that it was made on sort of a limited budget, but one little effect that I thought looked really cool was when the vampire girl went into full monster mode. Her mouth just became like this huge red hole, and as she opened it up, she made like this wildcat sound, like that was my wildcat impersonation. But yeah, although I did enjoy this movie for the most part, there were a couple of things in it that got on my nerves, and those things were basically just the subplots. For one thing, you've got this girl in the high school who desperately wants to be black, and she's got special makeup for that, and it's not just regular blackface. She's got these special appliances to make her lips bigger and to bring out her cheekbones and to make her nose thicker. And of course she's got an afro as well. And it's just like the most awkward racist joke I've ever seen. I mean, I didn't find it offensive so much as just downright cringeworthy. Also, the other, subplot involves this club of girls who cut themselves. There's this leader in the group who is trying out for some sort of competition, apparently. They've all got like these really over-the-top sort of deep voices, and they do this chant that becomes really annoying really fast. Although I will admit that it actually got pretty amusing when they got to the competition itself, because the girl who was competing against the leader of the group ended up cutting herself so deeply that she chopped her own arm off on accident and was disqualified. That got a laugh out of me. I guess I have a pretty weird sense of humor, but, you know. Anyway, definitely, if you're into movies that are just so bad they're awesome, or if you like watching terrible movies just to rip them apart, then, you know, this comes recommended. It's not a good movie by any means, but it's a great guilty pleasure for sure. Anyway, that's it for my review. I hope you all have a good night.